Whenever companies come to us and they want a quick ROI from content, there's almost always two recommendations that we have for them. First is create sales enablement content, things that are going to be useful that you can use in your sales process to immediately close more deals, white papers, case studies, things of that sort. And the second is to start utilizing networking content. And a lot of people don't know what we mean by this. And in this video, I'm going to dive in more into what is networking content and why is it such an amazing and powerful growth channel in today's day and age. So when most people think of content, they immediately think, oh, I'm going to put out some content into the world, and as a result, people will find it and search for it or share it and see it on Google, and I'll start getting inbound leads that'll be coming to my business. And this is where most people, that's like all their kind of picture of what content is. And while yes, inbound leads from content is an amazing thing, it tends to actually be quite a long-term play. For most people, when they start putting out content, they don't actually start getting inbound leads or results like that, typically for 6 to 12 months, and that's after being kind of consistent and putting the work in. So the question becomes, how do you get a quicker ROI from content while still building that long-term inbound leads play? And that's where networking content comes into play. So we call this networking content whenever you are engaging in a content creation activity that is collaborative and is going to enable you to network with others. By networking, we mean that could be with your peers, your partners, your prospects, or just other influencers or leaders within your industry. Examples of networking content would include podcasts, for one, where you're using a podcast to really network and interview others in your space. You could also do the same thing over a video series that you post on YouTube or Vimeo, where you interview people over, say, a video or a webinar series, and you're again featuring others in your space. Another avenue would be research reports, and this would be where you're actually going out and you're interviewing people in your space for maybe, whatever that trend report. So you can think of, say, like a 2021 trend report on X industry, and you go interview a lot of people in your space. What are the trends they're seeing? What are the changes that they're seeing? And that's, again, a really great way to create thought leadership content and also network and interview a lot of people at the same time. You can also do expert roundups, where you say maybe get some quotes from people for specific kind of articles where you're gonna kind of compile the expertise of a handful of thought leaders. Or doing interview-based articles, maybe where you're interviewing people not for podcasts or videos, but for articles as well. But really, typically, most of the time, if you're gonna do an interview, you'll probably do a podcast, and then maybe you build an article based off of that as well. But as you can see, with all these different types of mediums, the key is that you're not just creating content yourself. You are collaborating and creating content with others in your industry. And again, so this could be your peers, your partners, or even prospects for your business. And this is an extremely powerful growth tool. To give you an example, I myself have a podcast with over 200 guests on the show. And those are 200 new relationships that I have built as a result of that podcast. We've recently launched a Leaders of B2B podcast at Content Allies, where again, we are able to network and interview others in our industry. Our lead strategist launched this Startup Happy Hour podcast, where she's able to, again, network within the startup industry and again, speak to peers and potential customers and partners that are all of her interests and in the types of clients that we'd like to work with. So as you can see, this is an extremely powerful growth channel, because you're not just creating content hoping to be found, you're actually building a new relationship every single time you interview someone. And so you interview someone on a podcast, and then afterward you're able to chit chat for 10 or 15 minutes, however much time you have left over, and just build a relationship with that person. And when you do this and you reach out in this collaborative way, people are much more likely to say yes than, say, if you were to just try to cold pitch them. And you don't want to necessarily cold pitch everyone that you do content with, but it's a way to start a relationship in an authentic way, in a way that positions you as a leader in the field and as an expert. So let's imagine you're running, say, a supply chain tech company, and someone reaches out to you and they want to have you as a guest on the Leaders of Supply Chain podcast, whatever that show is called. And as a CEO in the supply chain industry, you're going to say, heck yes, that's going to get me in front of other people in my space, people that are potential customers, peers, or partners. And this person interviewing me probably knows a lot of people if they're running a podcast in this space. So as you can see, it positions the person doing the interview in a phenomenal way, and it's going to just build that relationship and start that off on a great footing. And so this is why, again, we focus on this so much. So imagine for a second that you just do one interview a week and you launch a podcast or a video series. You do one interview a week. At the end of a year, that's 52 new relationships you have. Now, you could even amplify that, go up to, say, 3 interviews a week and just go really fast on it. That'd be over 150 new relationships you build a year just through going out and interviewing people and starting these relationships. And our head of sales, David Ledgerwood, at a previous company used this exact strategy. Interviewed over 200 people over the course of about a year. Out of that, directly from the podcast, generated over $300,000 of revenue. Indirectly, by getting kind of upsells or kind of using the podcast with people that were already in the sales process, generated another $200,000 of revenue. And the podcast eventually grew to the point of getting 10,000 downloads per month. And so all of these benefits can happen and can be this great growth channel for you and your companies here. Myself, even with my own podcast, at one point about 2 years ago, I did an analysis and found that over 50% of the revenue from my companies was directly related to my podcast. And a majority of that was not from the audience. While I'd say maybe 10% of that came from the audience members, 90% of that came from the relationships that I built with the guests, the other influencers who had audiences of customers that I wanted to get in front of. And so this is the value of networking content. You can network with peers, with other influencers, with other thought leaders, people who have audiences of your customers, and do that in a trust-building way. And so when people ask us how to get a quick ROI from content, we always say the same thing. Sales enablement content to help you close more deals, and networking content to grow your network and get you in front of more peers, partners, and prospects. So that's what we've got for today. Hope you enjoy this video. Feel free to reach out, and if you want to learn more about networking content, feel free to ask us by saying hello at contentallies.com.